Hi there, welcome back to People Are People. This is season 1, episode 7. Don't let ick get on you. I know that's easier said than done, but I saw this quote and I think it's very fitting for just the moment. And it says, you only have so much emotional energy each day. Don't fight battles that don't matter. Can I paste it to my forehead, do you think? So, we're human and other people's ick, it's easy to get on you. It's easy to absorb the energy around you. I used to work at a makeup studio and it was really small, like 900 square feet, 20 people, 10 people, but we would, 20 that would alternate. So there were 5 to 10 people in the room at all times, clients and coworkers. And it was so tiny. And the owner, he did suffer from some mental illness, but he had mood swings. And one day I said to him, "You cannot bring that here just because you're having a bad day, not because of any mental illness. Just, I meant, if you're having a bad day and you're grouchy, you cannot bring that here because we all feel it. This place is 2 by 2. We feel your energy. You're bringing everyone down." So it's easy to say, don't let it get on you, but we do. We were out to breakfast this morning, and the cutest woman, she's a waitress, but she is a DJ and she's a sign language teacher and a special educator. She walked by and she put her hand on my shoulder. We're friends. We were talking, and I was like, oh my gosh, that feels so good. I'm like, I made her put her hand on my sister's back because her energy was so good. It felt amazing. And so I'm learning to do the best that I can, to not be impacted. So I know I keep mentioning we have this problem in our home. We're not exactly sure. And we've called all kinds of professionals, and we really don't know what is causing leaks on from our attic into our home. And they can't really target a cause. And so what I found was that it's been weighing on me. And I'm like, kind of, sluggish and icky. And I'm going, okay, my house is my haven. I always feel great and feel best at home. And when things are out of whack, it starts, it weighs on you, but then it starts you on this downward spiral of, okay, we haven't figured out the house problem. And then, so, um, what can you do to fix it? So I woke up today and it's been, I mean, we're going on 6 weeks. So it's been a little heavy. And I woke up today and I was like, that's it. I I had to release it. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Whether insurance covers it, whether we have to fix it ourselves, whether we have to figure it out. We have more professionals coming on Monday. It's going to work out. We're blessed. We have a beautiful life. I always say life is really, really hard and really, really beautiful. And so, of course, I like order, but everything's fine. It's not actively leaking. We're good. So it's really a matter of, making a decision to release it and not let it impact you. Um, I will not get political. I will not. Um, there's enough of that in the world, and I think that we can escape it anyway, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum of it. But I will say that innocent people suffering of all kinds, any innocent person that's suffering, um, is heartbreaking, and no innocent person's heartache is more deserved than another's. And so there are a lot of innocent people really hurting right now. I was following a story on the news, and some of the innocent people, not to say that there are not millions of others, this is not political. Some of the innocent people who were kidnapped recently in Israel were babies, 9 months old and 2 years old. And there was something really horrifying about that. Not because conflict doesn't happen and not because there weren't innocent people on every side. It had nothing to do with that. It was just an individual story that sort of took us all by storm. It was heartbreaking. It was found out this week that they were killed. Again, it's war and it's conflict, and I understand it. But as a human, it's hard to take because it is the epitome of helpless. They were helpless, and then we are helpless. And so it messed me up. It did. It was like, listen, all the news stories equally messed me up. Something about this one, because I think there was false hope, it really got me. So I had a couple of hard days last week, and I woke up, so was it 2 days ago? No, it was a dinner 2 days ago, and I said to my son, oh my gosh, we got to go home. I have an idea. And the children and their mother were all three killed. Their father just was released from into Israel, and they all had red hair, the mother and the two children. And so I was like, I just have to do this. And so what I did is I made a bracelet. See? So it's a red bracelet, just a string with 3 golden beads. And they're just to represent them, 3 innocent people. Again, I'm not discounting that there are millions of other innocent people that have had horrific tragedy. But these are the 3 that I'm focusing on. And I found that members of the community around me were also really reeling from this tragedy. It was like, I think I know that it just came from a place of helplessness. What can we do? And so I made the bracelet and I put it on and I took a picture and I said, and I contacted, a really trusted member of my community. And I said, what are some good organizations to donate to? And he gave me a list, and I just put it on Facebook. And I just basically said, like, listen, let's just send some money. Let's just do some good. Here are a few organizations. If you want to buy a bracelet, let's do it. I didn't really have time to be making bracelets. I have packed my plate really full. I keep telling myself I want to simplify and like watch a movie, but I don't. I want to, but I just don't. I'm not great at time management because I try to fit 17 things in half a day. So I put the bracelet online, and I had to turn off commenting because I think I've right now I think I have 300 orders. It's not orders for me. It's not my business. It's not a profit. We're going to donate. We're going to donate that. The reason I'm sharing this is when you're helpless and when you feel like there's nothing else you can do, find something to do. People are emailing me constantly now. I literally put them on my porch with their names on them and I text them. They Venmo. I'm going to send all the money out as soon as we collect it all. I send them a message. Your item is ready. It's on the porch. They've been texting me after. They're so happy because no one knows what to do in times of tragedy. I think this is why we do meal trains and we do, donation how they like crowdfunding, if you will, for when someone passes away or when, somebody's house burns down. We are helpless and we carry this ick until you do something. And so for me, it really helped me. You can't always do that. And sometimes, someone or a situation is just icky, and it doesn't mean that they're icky all the time, but I do realize that I have a tendency to sort of absorb the energy around me. I should work on that, definitely. If you watched a couple weeks ago, you know that I'm into mediums. I just think I'm just intrigued by it. I went to a women's dinner. I really don't get out much, but I went to this. I thought it would be fun. And there were women, and there was a medium who I do like. She's not my favorite, but I like her, but I like her the most as a person. I gotten to know her, and she's just very sweet. So it was good to see her. And we had dinner, and then she went table to table. So we're sitting. And I had gone, it was like once a month on Wednesdays to this women's dinner, when you bake on one day, just different events. So I had gotten to know, an old friend of mine was there, and I had gotten to know another woman. Um, so we were sitting at the table, and she was kind of like already like, oh, I don't want to do this. Why are you here? So what do they say? Don't yuck on someone else's yum. I remember in school, this girl, she was sweet, but she was a lot. And she would be like, the kid sitting next to her, are you eating tuna? That's so gross. I hate tuna. Okay. No one cares. That's enough. So in this case, she was kind of already like, oh. So she probably should have just said to the woman, if it's okay, please don't read me. I'm just here for the company. So she didn't do that. So the woman starts reading everyone. She was fine. Some of them were great. Some were like, okay. And it got to her, and it was like painful. So she dives right in, and she tells her, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And she's going on this whole thing. And the woman is hysterical, which is so sad. And you feel so sorry. It ended. The event was over, and she had to leave kind of in the middle of hers. And she said, like, I can come back to you, whatever. And she was like, no, no. And I understand this was very sensitive for her. She probably should have done this in a more private setting. But what she did is she took this event that was sort of for like ladies' night out. She made it really intense. And not because she's not entitled to hear hard things about her family and unexpected, but because she didn't keep any composure and became unkind. And so clearly I lay it all on the line. I mean, I am who I am. Like I say, I'm not for everyone, but you'd want me on your team. And she was like broken down. I mean, she was like, and I said, oh, it's okay. Like, what do you say? Like, oh, you're sitting next to me. Oh, I'm like, this is probably good. Like, you'll think about this later and it'll be good. And she was like, snapped at me. And I was like, okay. And then I said, oh, I mean, what do you say? I don't really know her, but I knew she was married, but maybe she's not happily married. I don't know. I should have just shut up. But I said, oh, I'm like, but you have your husband and your children and da-da-da. And she was like, I don't want to talk about it. And I was like, okay. So, and this woman next to me who I know was like, Darcy. And I was like, there was no winning. And so like, I'm like a fixer. And so that was a fixer fail. But what happened was it really, I have not gone back to an event. I probably won't. I'm completely uncomfortable. In fact, that's not true. The following month, we had one more that I was already scheduled for. I make crafty items and I was selling them at this little show there. And the friend that I knew from the first time said to me, oh, so-and-so is going to be here. And I was like, who? And she doesn't want to talk about it. And I was like, who? And then it hit me. I was like, oh yeah. I said, I wouldn't talk about that for money. Like, good luck. But it's just funny. So it sort of changes everything. And to avoid that, I mean, I guess I could avoid going, but I liked going. But she probably, not to blame it on her. I mean, I could have just shut my mouth and let her cry and not try to fix like I do. But she also should know herself. And if you're not comfortable in that setting, don't do that to other people because, people like me absorb it. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure, if it was me or her or just both, but it was yucky and it messed me up for a few days. And there wasn't really anything I could do. But I tried. The other thing is, with releasing this, if you will, releasing this pressure about this house and, releasing some of the pain over those babies and choosing to do that, it had to be conscious for me because I realized it was like weighing me down, like carrying sludge. But what it is if you cling so tightly to what's going to happen and how do I fix it and this is so sad, and as that you don't allow things to flow freely, and I always forget that, and then I remind myself. So I think that that's just a good one. It feels good not to cling so tightly. I also think that with clinging tightly, loyalty I think is really, really important. But you're also free. I'm sure you've experienced this, and I know I have, certainly just from places I've worked in, over the years when I was much younger. But even the hairdresser, even your manicurist, if they're not making you feel a certain way anymore and you're not happy with how you're looking or the work they're doing, it's okay. I mean, you have people who are like, oh, I'm so uncomfortable. I don't want to hurt her feelings. And that's so nice. That's valid. But at the same time, what are you giving so that you can make them feel better? So it's just a matter of, I think there's balance. And I think that you deserve to have what you want without worrying about other people being hurt or even reacting. But also, we also have the responsibility of taking a step back. You know what I mean? Taking a moment before you react, because then everyone, you can change the temperature in the room. It's uncomfortable. So if we're just a little more conscious of those around us, but also on both sides, conscious of those around us that may be absorbing our yuck, but conscious of those around us so that we don't. So I always say, like, I'm like, don't worry, don't worry. I wrapped you in bubble wrap and glitter because I don't want other people to, if I see them feeling the ick, I'm like, don't worry. I wrapped you in bubble wrap. You're so good. You're all good. Um, sometimes you witness, not unfairness, but, yeah, like, where you're like, ooh, they really got screwed over. That did not, it's funny. Um, there's a place that my son goes, and he's been going there for years. And so I've watched the management for years. And what happens is, from the top down, no one really compliments the person that works below them. So there's not a really high morale. And they're always like screwing each other over. And so the person on top feels like on top of the world that day or that year, or that, I mean, it could be, it's been, I mean, this is a lot of years. So it could be a year or a few months and they feel like invincible. And then they screw over the person below them or, adjacent or whatever. And then I watch because I know this now. I know the system. I know how it works. It's a lot of years. Then they get screwed over. And you're like, well, karma, but you feel bad because you like them, but karma. And then it happens again. And the person who took the trip instead of the person who was supposed to go for the business trip, or the person who asked if, she could work just this one favorite role, and that's the only role they took from them, and then they get fired, that same person, and then the person who took it and fired them and whatever, then they get fired. And not like, oh, they get screwed over in the exact same way. And so it's sort of a reminder that you do unto others, and you are very possibly going to get the same treatment that you gave, but also karma. And so if you didn't mean to do it, we probably still get karma, but it's different because sometimes you can unintentionally hurt someone. When you're blatantly gross, it's coming back. But also, if somebody was blatantly gross, you don't have to let that in. You're allowed to put your bubble wrap on. And so that's been, definitely an ongoing challenge. It's funny because my husband does not do that. He's amazing. Like, he is not phased. He's, 21 years later, I've come a long way. He's like subconsciously trained me, and I'll be like, oh, da, da, da. And he doesn't minimize it, but he's like, so, like, meaning why are you letting that impact you? And it's so good for me. I mean, so I'll literally say, like, I'll just send him a text, like, I feel so gross, so-and-so. And he's like, he just knows, like, he's not surprised to get these texts that someone's being gross and that I allowed it to penetrate. Like, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. But I'm working on it. And I think that I'm not the only one that has this problem. And I think it's part, like, you put yourself out there. And so you're going to get that response sometimes. You're going to feel that way sometimes, unless you're under your covers, which I also love, unless you're living, in a cave. So, but, it's funny. Years ago, I'm sassy. My son has special needs, and he was at summer camp, and on Fridays they had pizza day. And there was like a pizza kitchen like a small cafe restaurant at the camp as part of this big building. And they had a deal with the owner of that pizza place that on Friday they would buy the pizza from them. And the camp director had an argument with the pizza guy. Who cares? It's business. Grow up. Because he had an argument, he canceled all pizza days, all pizza Fridays. The kids were so upset, they served macaroni and cheese. Cafeteria style macaroni and cheese. No one liked it. It was like school lunch meets hospital and not the cute fancy ones. Everyone was upset. It's literally pizza. I'm sure they can go home and have pizza if they want, but it was just the idea that this behavior, this interaction between two grown men ruined it for hundreds of kids. So, and my son has special needs. So it was like, to me, an extra big deal because he doesn't ask for anything and he doesn't love that much. So this was like a disappointment. So I call like the big director, like the CEO, and I was like, oh, and I was upset. I mean, because this it had been a few weeks already and they like wouldn't make up to just make the pizza. So I said it to I called and made an appointment with the CEO, and the secretary answered, and I was like, I'd really like a meeting. And she was like, okay, come at XYZ time. So then I was like getting ready to go or within the couple hours. And she was like, he actually is not available. And I was like right now. And she's like, no, you can't come. So I called my dad and I was like, I'm supposed to go meet this guy and talk about pizza. And it's really the principal. And the secretary canceled and she said, he doesn't have time to see you. And my dad said, ever? And I will never forget it as long as I live. Ever? Like, you don't have time ever to talk to me about pizza. So I went in my pajamas. I was wearing like flowy jammy pants and a hoodie. And I just went to the office and I sat there and she was like, he can't. And I was like, I'll wait. Like, what? You can't find 10 minutes for me? We're going to talk about pizza. Like, how long can we? So when I got there, the director was actually in with him. And when he walked out, I was like, oh, perfect. So now you know why I'm here. They need to make up. It's ridiculous. But it was just such a funny thing. Like, you can't meet ever. And I almost accepted it until my father said to me, like, what are you talking about? Like, he's so busy. Everyone's busy. We all have time for what we want to have time for. He made the time. I went in there. I made my pizza case. I was like, no one wants your macaroni. Have a good day. And so we didn't. And so, I mean, we did. We stopped having the macaroni and we started having pizza. And it wasn't because of me only, but it was just a matter of if we let these ickies dictate how we're going to behave, then that's what we're going to feel. And they're going to win. So don't let it in. So my final, ick is ongoing. It's something that I've mentioned a few times. And we're a little stumped. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it, but the story is that about 8 years ago, my father took the day off work. We went to visit some like older generations and then my mom's side at the cemetery. And it's a little bit far away. We drove there. My kids were in school. We went to the cemetery. We really couldn't find anyone that worked there. It's nothing like the cemetery that my other side of the family is buried at. I know my way around there and whatever. And there's always someone working. They told me some of the locations, but all the markings on the sidewalk were faded. So worn off, so you couldn't see anyways. And also there's no rhyme and reason. Everything is like weird. So we're looking. We finally find almost everyone. Thank goodness my dad remembered where most everyone was, and it's huge. It's 40 acres. But we couldn't find my great-grandfather. So I called the director of the cemetery, who is the director of the chapel. It just so happens it's affiliated with a funeral home. You don't have to use them both. But so he was very nice, and he said, oh, I'm so sorry, da-da-da. He takes a picture, and he sends it to me. And I said, oh, I'm so glad, he didn't get up and walk away. And I'm grateful to you, but I wanted to be able to see him when I was there. Okay. We were disappointed. We were disappointed in the condition. There were broken stones, and it was a lot. A trip hazard. So over the course of the 7 years, I have written letters. I've met the director at the cemetery. He's driven me around and he's given me all the reasons why they can't make it beautiful. I mean, it was once very beautiful, The groundskeeper, it's too big. We hire people that don't do a good job, seasonal employees, on and on and on. And I accepted it for a while. I also said I would bring my own paint and my own time when my kids are in school and paint the sidewalks again so that we can see them. No, no, no. Why? Then I said, let's do a fundraiser because he said to me, well, we're out of money. I said, let's do a fundraiser. We inherited all these cemeteries. They didn't come with any money. Okay, let's do a fundraiser. Turns sheet white. No, no, we can't do a fundraiser. We can't let anyone know we're out of money. Well, I mean, if it's true. I'm like, you want me to do a bake sale? What do you want? You want a gala? What can I do? Nothing, nothing, nothing. More years go by, and there are some mom groups on Facebook that I'm part of, and they're starting to say, has anyone been over there? Like, it's a wreck. And I was like, oh, here we go. So about 8 months ago, it got reactivated. It's never really gone away, but a lot of stories came out. People started sending me pictures. We heard about 2 women. One was mourning her daughter she was visiting. One was at a cemetery, and they each fell and they both broke their ankle because of the terrain. There is not a golf cart to take elderly. The groundskeeper, I now have his cell phone on speed dial, and I asked him to meet me to show me because I'm looking and I'm walking back and forth and it's 500 degrees out and I'm sweating and I'm like, I can't find them. Like, it's a huge cemetery, which they use as their excuse as to why they can't keep it up. He drove up to me in a forklift and he was like, oh, here you go. Okay. So I can't put my mom in there and let her ride around with him. Like, for example, a golf cart. So it's in really bad shape. Then people started reporting their stories to me. Then one lady said that she was visiting her sister's grave and the weeds were up to her chest, but also a homeless person had come up to her while she was mourning and begged for money. So we said we need some security, we need some people on staff, and we have like a whole list for them. Well, I met the president of they have like a board of trustees, and I met the president, and he was very kind that day. And I told him that I'd already met with the rabbi, and he said, we don't have any money. And he says, we have money. We have 3 investment accounts. I'm like, amazing. Let's use it. So we make an agreement that I am going to get bids. I don't work for them. Nothing, no relation. But I'm going to go to outside landscapers and get bids. So I tried to get them 3 bids. I was in touch with 5 companies who had come from recommendations. I had gone down the path. I get them. It took a long time because even though it's a very lucrative job, no one wants it because the cemetery is so far gone now since this director has been in charge for the last 40 years, 35 years. No one wants the job, and it's such a bummer. So I find 3 people. The bids are crazy, but one is like pretty reasonable, and he's willing to work within our budget. So he'll go in and he'll spray the weeds for the whole season. And then he'll cut the grass and do the things. And I'm like, this is amazing. In the meantime, while I was at the cemetery, the president is kind of like, well, how many people are in this group that you're saying, are upset? And I said, well, I said to the groundskeeper who met us there, I said, how many calls do you think you get a week of complaints? And he's like, 65. Now, any other business on the planet, if you're getting 65 complaints a week, it's time for a change. Maybe a management shift. So he's like, oh, wow, that's a lot. Yeah. So in that discussion, he asks me how many people are in this group. And at that time, we had just formed a WhatsApp group. I said, 75 people or whatever it was. And he starts laughing. Oh, there's 23,000 burials here. I said, well, they're all part of the group too. I'm going to speak for them. But he was like, that's not even, a tenth or whatever. So because he said that, I said, I better start a petition so we can really get some signatures and really see who is feeling this way. So I think I have like 1,900 right now. But somewhere along the way of collecting the signatures, the president called me. In fairness to him, he had just gotten out of the hospital and he wasn't feeling well, and he probably shouldn't have called me. But he started screaming at me and telling me that I was riling the masses. And I said, no, I didn't do that. You did that. And I was very calm. I said, I didn't do that. You did that. um, when you let the cemetery, remain in this condition. Um, we have not spoken since, but I chose not to include the director in any correspondence from the time I met the president forward, including when I was going to meet the president, because I feel that he's dishonest. And I know that's not what a lot of people like to hear about somebody in that type of position, but I feel it's true. He told me they were out of money. He told me they were going to fix it. They ran a story in the paper 10 years ago and 5 years ago about this condition. They've not done anything about it. So since then, I have gone to leaders, to clergy in the area, like 119 of them. I went to 75 attorneys. I went to the, philanthropists in the area. We live in a wealthy community. I went to all of them. Um, I don't know what else to do. I mean, it is the kind of thing that weighs on you. It's the kind of thing that also, it's a very chauvinistic mentality. It's a good old boys club, the board, and so they won't let us meet with them. I'm a woman, so already, like, you can't have a woman telling you what to do. It's 1921. But it's hard. It's hard not to let that weather on the outside. That it's hard. I mean, I it's a lot. I mean, I have to step back. My husband's like, "Aren't you done with this?" My mother's like, "Aren't you done?" My sisters, "Haven't you had enough?" But I have to do this for, first of all, for the rest of us who feel this way, but for our loved ones who deserve, to have a better resting place. And we shouldn't have to go clean it ourselves and do all the, even though we've offered to bring in groups on Sundays. Oh no, by the time you're done doing that section, you're going to have to start over. So there is no solution that they're willing to agree to. So that is, I always like, I draw this like circle, and then I put like sunshine, lines around it, and then squiggly lines. And the sunshine is your big, responsibilities, your home, your relationship, your children, your job. Okay. And then the squiggly lines are the things that you're working on, that you're really fine crossing off. And the cemetery has been a squiggle on that damn sunshine for too long. Spring is coming. I found a perfect company. They have told that company that they will do the work themselves. We know they won't. But I really do want to cross it off. I just feel like I have to see it through. I almost like, I know that it's impacting me because they literally do not respond. They wrote a letter the other day, and it was, somebody counted, somebody on my team counted, and there were, out of the 8 paragraphs, 6 of them were from a previous letter. And it was in response to a letter that I had written. I contacted someone, actually, see, your daddy's still looking out for you all these years later. I contacted someone that my dad had introduced me to, and he contacted some higher ups, which prompted a letter response, which was good because also a man. But it's hard to be in this position where that you're asking for something that's nothing. You're asking for what's fair, and you're offering to help, and it's just easier to say no. So it's a conscious choice to not allow that to impact me. And when it gets to be too much, you take a step back and you sort of walk away, and you say, okay, right now they hold the key to that. Right now, I'm a little sassy. So I have declared, and clearly I have no shame, that when that rabbi passes, I wish him no ill. The rabbi runs the cemetery. When he passes someday in a long time, I don't know where he'll be buried, but since he told me that if he went to his father's grave and it looked like this, he would be devastated, I have declared, and I have no problem saying this, that wherever he rests in many years, I will be tending to his grave, and I will tend to it in just the same way that he has tended to these. And I don't think that that's unfair. I think it is fair. I think that it's what's right. Um, but that's also an example of me letting it impact me. So I'm working on that. I think a lot of us are. But we, we're waiting for spring. We're hoping for change this year. And, you know, worst comes to worst, we just start bussing people in and we all just do it ourselves. It would just be unfair to have to do that when it would be so easy for a company to come and do it right. But we're willing. And so the whole point of this is that it is so easy to be impacted by arrogance and by, you know, just stubborn behavior and icky people that rub off on you. It's easy, but try to find the people like our waitress friend who puts her hand on your arm and your shoulder and you feel literally amazing, and focus on causes and people who fill you up. I met a friend of mine, B, when I was 14 years old. We both went to New York City for a summer program um, in fashion design. I know this hoodie girl used to be into fashion. And we were 14. We hit it off. We reconnected. We stayed in touch and visited, but we reconnected when we were 18 and we moved back to the city for college. And then we stayed in touch, and now we're old and we have children. And we've seen each other a couple times since then. Um, but life got in the way, and we email here and there, but we decided to have a Zoom call last week. And I can't even describe, it's 5 days later and I'm still like so filled. It was amazing. It was like, why did I forget to surround myself with joy and goodness and motivation and good energy, and I let these heavy icks get on me. And so it was a really good reminder, and I really wanted to share it so that we all remember, with the climate of the world right now being so heavy, that we all remember to find the good and surround yourself with it. And if you aren't surrounded by it, go find it, because it's right there. I mean, it was like I said to her, "Why did we wait so long?" And even like I say, even the waitress, I mean, I'm going out to eat, I just got lucky. I was surrounded by a really nice, staff, and it felt good. In fact, one of the waiters once was like, "Is she in a bad mood?" And I was like, "Oh no, my ceiling is just, falling in." And so I was rubbing off on him, and he felt so bad, but I told him right away, and I was like, "Oh no, I mean, I love you," because he asked someone if I was mad at him. So we all can do it, and he allowed me to rub off on him. He wasn't even in my zone. I love him. I didn't even know that I was behaving in a different way, just less chipper. Um, but find find good things to glom on to you, and protect yourself from letting the negative things and the heavy ick get on you and penetrate. So here's to bubble wrap. And so I will tell you in closing what I like to do. And I just picture wrapping my whole self in bubble wrap and then gold and pink glitter. And you're like, it's your armor, and you are ready to go and block out anything bad, and it only attaches good. And just enjoy your goodness and block out the ick. See you next week.